ASMR. Okay, you guys, let's try this again. I think my cat's distracted. By the way, I do love my cat, and I would definitely rescue her from a snowbank. She's just annoying sometimes. She might be eating food right now, I don't know. So, let's read from True Tales of Ghostly Encounters, compiled and edited by Andrew Honigman from the Files of Fate magazine. A walk in the park. 8 years ago, my newlywed husband and I were enjoying exploring the quaintness of our adopted state and found ourselves at an outdoor art show. It was a glorious fall afternoon, and the park was packed with vendors showing their wares. For Vermont, the event had drawn a good crowd of people. I remember feeling so happy and carefree, walking casually about. I looked out ahead, people watching, and a familiar face jumped out from the others. A chill of what I thought was recognition ran through me, from scalp to fingertips and down to my toes. Some 50 feet before me was my first love, Frank. But it couldn't be. He lived in New Mexico now. I knew it couldn't be him, but it was. He was walking right next to me. I suddenly felt at ease and strangely calm. I reached out to my husband, who was but an arm's length away. At that moment, I was stunned as my old flame walked, seemingly right into me. I felt nothing but a wave of peace and contentment. My husband had turned to see why I had paused, and I beseeched him, "Did you see that? That was Frank." I turned to point out the man that had just passed, but he was gone. He's disappeared. I felt a need to follow in the direction that Frank had gone. We ended up across the street from the park in a used bookstore. It had been a huge house originally, and we wandered from room to room, browsing. I felt that I was searching for something but didn't know what it could be. In a dark hallway was a single bookcase filled with dusty volumes that time had forgotten, one of which called to me. I picked it out and opened it to find a pressed four-leaf clover among the pages. A chill ran through me once again as I read the title page. Natural Law in the Spirit World. I bought the book. A week later, I received word that Frank had passed away, the very day that I had seen him in the park. I believe that he had come to say goodbye and make sure that I was happy in my life, assuring me good luck with the four-leaf clover and trying to give me understanding of life and death through the book. That story was submitted by a Heather in Roanoke, Virginia in September of 2000. Sister, goodbye. My sister Lavise was 18 years old when I was born in Arbert, Missouri. There were no other children between us. Lavise and I had a relationship more like mother and daughter than like sisters, and even her death hasn't been able to sever the bond. As I grew up, married, and followed my sailor husband to various stations around the world, our bond remained. If she was sick, I suffered her aches and pains. If she was happy, I felt happy. When she was depressed, I too would experience an emotional down. Our frequent letters confirmed this empathy. In 1962, my sister learned that she was dying of cancer. At that time, she was living in Watsonville, California, and I was living in Washington, D.C. I drove to Missouri, packed my mother and younger brother into the car with my own 2 children, and we made what I thought was to be my last visit to my sister. The disease finally took its toll, and Lavise left her earthly body on February 16th, 1963, shortly after her 41st birthday. Her remains were returned to Missouri for burial. The weather in Missouri had been balmy and warm until the day of Lavise's funeral. That day, the temperature dropped to 40 degrees. The flowers froze the instant they were placed around her grave, and I was beside myself with grief, agonizing inwardly because she was being placed in the hard, cold ground. It seemed so unfair that she had only those brief 41 years on this earth. The family members returned to our parents' home, and we sat reminiscing quietly until late that night. I had been asleep for maybe 2 hours when suddenly I found myself wide awake. I heard the front door quietly open and close. This seemed strange because no one else was up, and the door had been dead bolted from the inside. Then, I once again felt that bone-chilling coldness I had felt at the cemetery. My heart began to pound, and I broke into a cold sweat. Softly but distinctly, I could hear a steady footfall coming to my bedroom. As the footsteps approached nearer and nearer, I lay literally paralyzed with fear. Then I saw her in the doorway. It was my sister. She was wearing the same dress she'd been buried in, and she was looking at me and smiling. Slowly, she approached my bed and looked down at me. She leaned over and placed her hands on the covers at my shoulders. I could feel the icy hands. They were cold, cold to the touch, making my skin cold. She kissed me softly on each cheek and said, "I just came to say goodbye. Don't be afraid. I'm not taking you with me. I will be so happy when you can come and be with me. Always remember that I love you." Then she straightened up, turned around, and the same door she had used when she entered. The next morning, I got up before the rest of the family and hurried to the front door. It was still dead-bolted from the inside. No one could possibly have entered the house that way the night before. I even convinced myself that it was just a dream. When I finally told Dad about the strange occurrence, saying that I thought it must have been a dream, I saw that his eyes misted over. No, it was no dream. I heard the door and the footsteps too, but I couldn't get out of bed. It was as if I was tied down. But I'm not at all surprised that she went to see you. She loved you more than anybody else in this world. And if she could say goodbye to any of us, it would have been to you. Through the years, I've never felt totally alone, because I can still hear her soft voice telling me that she will be so happy when I can come and be with her. This story was submitted by Bonds Writings in Burbank, California, in May of 1983. In both worlds, my proof of survival came through someone I scarcely knew. 18 years ago, Millie and Paul moved into the house next door. Pleasant, bothering no one, they soon became neighborhood favorites. Shortly after they settled in, grief left them stunned. Their youngest child, 8-year-old, vibrant, pretty Nicole, died suddenly on a bright February morning. In 1998, I saw Nicole, although I didn't recognize her at first. While reading in bed, I looked up and noticed a girl standing nearby. As I started, she smiled warmly and put fingers to her lips. She gave off such friendliness, I instinctively reminded myself that she must mean no harm. She reminded me of someone. I couldn't place who. Slim and lithe, she had smartly coiffed red gold hair and a glowing complexion. I stared, fascinated and wondering. Positive she came from another world, but not scared at all. In her mid-20s, she had the poise and chic of a high-fashion model. Most impressive, however, was the deep contentment of her expression, smacking of religious dedication. Obviously, she was on a mission and loving her role. For perhaps half a minute, our eyes met. Then, moving swiftly, she wrote a couple of sentences on a white sheet of paper and deposited it at my side, not touching me. There was a sense of an impassable gap between us. Drawing back, she vanished. No fading. One instant she was present, the next not. Ditto with the paper. When I told Millie of her visit, she asked, how was she dressed? In a sky blue frock, a classy job. It had fancy buttons, silk, I think. She was buried in one like that, and this is the anniversary of her death. But why didn't she leave a message? I asked. Oh, she did win. She radiated God's peace and happiness. Plainly, she's with him and also with us. What could be better than that? This story was submitted by Wynn Esselborn from Newark, New Jersey in April of 2000. Sorry guys, I had to cut it off here. When I went back to edit this video, I realized that there were just so many annoying loud background things, and I tried to cut out the earlier ones of my cat, but then the refrigerator started making noises at the end, and there was a loud bang, and it wouldn't let me edit it out. It kept messing up, so I don't think the video would be enjoyable anymore if you found it enjoyable so far. So I'm just gonna cut it here. Sorry about that, guys. Super sorry.